Well, all right, guys, I want to make best use of our time. So even though we still have some people that are joining, I think we're going to go ahead and get started so we can make sure that we have plenty of time to hear from John. And so during today's training event, as you know, we're going to get to hear from John McGee from Watermark Resources. And John's going to cover mistakes that leaders make when trying to win over their senior pastor. And John just has so much wisdom and experience on this topic that I know this is going to be really helpful for all of us. But before we get started, I do want to let you know that this session is being recorded and it will be shared with each of you in my follow-up email next week. So please be on the lookout for that email. And also we will have a dedicated Q&A session at the close of the call. And at that time, you're going to have the opportunity to ask John any questions that you may have. And another thing that we just wanted to bring your awareness to is National Marriage Week 2025. And it's coming up fast. It's February 7th through the 14th. And that'll be here before we know it. And this year's theme is pursuing a lasting love. And we're doing something kind of unique and different this year. And we're excited to offer a series of National Marriage Week live streams. And these events are going to be packed with content for couples, and they're going to be a really great resource to share with your communities, especially if you don't have local events planned. You can check out the schedule and the details at marriageweek.org and invite your community to those. And if your CMI is hosting an event, we would love to help promote it on our National Marriage Week events page. So if you would just send your URL to Deanna, her email is deanna@marriageinitiative.org, or you can send it to me and I'll get it to her. And we would love to list that event on our National Marriage Week events page. Also, I know that a lot of you have been working on marriage proclamations for National Marriage Week. If you secure a marriage proclamation from a governor, a mayor, or any other official, please send us photos of the proclamation and any with the officials. We would love to showcase those on our proclamation page. And, guys, this year we are really looking at National Marriage Week as a powerful opportunity to shift the way that our culture views and values marriage. And so we really do appreciate all of you helping us to make that shift. So thank you so much for all you do for National Marriage Week. Well, all right, let's begin with prayer. And I want to introduce you to one of our newest grantees, Keith Tully. And Keith Tully, if you don't know him, this is an amazing man of God. And he is with the Virginia Marriage Initiative. And Keith is co-leading the Virginia Marriage Initiative with Rebecca and Mark Blackwell. And they are just an amazing team. And we're excited that they're part of the CMI family. So Keith, whenever you are ready, we would love to have you pray.
Thanks, Steph. Lord Jesus, this day is yours. We rejoice and we are glad in it. We thank you for the opportunity to be together in this space and to receive from you. So, Lord, I just ask that you would set each one of us free from any distraction of the enemy, that we can receive everything that you want to give, and that we can follow you in the things that you give to us. Lord, I pray specifically for John and ask that you would fill him with the Holy Spirit, that you would anoint him for this time, that he would speak as if speaking the words of God. Lord, we love you, and we ask for revival across this nation and the marriages and families. We ask for a move of God. Show us our parts in it and give us the faith that we need to take those bold steps for revival to come. And we ask it together in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for praying, Keith. We appreciate you. And today, as I said, we have the amazing privilege of hearing from John McGee. And if you don't know John, John is the Senior Director of Watermark Resources at Watermark Community Church in Dallas, Texas. He is also the creator of Reengage, a church-based marriage enrichment program. I know all of you are pretty familiar with Reengage. We talk about it a lot. And John and his wife, Pam, have been married for 24 years. They have 4 children and 1 daughter-in-law. And they make they enjoy making memories together. That's a big thing for them. And a fun fact, this is really big. They have seen baseball games in every single MLB stadium. Now that to me is pretty impressive. They must really love baseball. And John also holds a THM from Dallas Theological Seminary, and I know that he has a lot of great wisdom to share with us today. So I can't wait to hear from him, and I know you can't wait to hear from him. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to John McGee.
Great. Thanks, Steph.
Ah,
And you know what? I bet you I sent you an old bio. Pam and I, if she was on the call, she'd want you to know you've been married 29 years. She's put up with me
oh,
for that long. And we actually have our first grandchild. So many
oh,
of you are already a part of that club. But we, as of 2 weeks, we are now part of that club, and we're grandparents, and we're really excited for our kids to have the same joy that Pam and I had. So but yes, we have been married almost 30 years, which some of you on this call, I know we're still rookies compared to you, but we love being married. So, you know, Steph, you and I talked about ways that I might be able to be helpful. And I know, you know, you've got a lot of content creators here. You've got a lot of great leaders. So you know, I think some of these people on the call have forgotten more about marriage than I'll ever know. But one of the things that that I do a lot of work with is actually helping people go from I want to implement this idea to implementation in a church. And have seen people do that really well, and have seen people do that really, really poorly, which is to say to not get their idea kind of implemented or championed and things like that. So one of our programs we have is called Reengage, and that is actively in 650 churches around the country. And we have a whole bunch more that are piloting right now as well. So a pretty common thing we see, or a data set that I have that maybe some of you don't, is couples will come to our church. They'll get really, really excited about Reengage, and then they will go back to their church and then begin to try to get leadership on board. So sometimes it goes really well. Sometimes it goes very, very poorly. And so it wasn't that in all of those, it wasn't that they didn't have a good program, a good plan, energy, vision. There's something that just broke down between the time they leave our church and go to their church. And I've seen through the years enough mistakes. I've seen some repeatable patterns. And so if I could serve you in any way, that might be helpful to share just some of the things that I've observed, I've learned, the mistakes that kind of keep showing up in the couples that don't get their things implemented, and as well as reproducible patterns for couples that do take an idea to their senior leadership and get it implemented and get it championed. So if that's okay, that's how I'd love to serve you, and you can do that across any program, any good idea, but how is it that you work with the senior pastor? And so that's what I might be uniquely kind of positioned to share with you. So if that's okay, let's talk about that. So I think one of the things I'd want you to know, and I will bet you there won't be very many things that I say that you will go, I never would have thought of that. I'd find that probably hard to believe that some of these things will be anyone's going to fall out of their chair, but maybe just talking it out loud, having someone else say these things will help you individually or help you help other people as you kind of wind them up and send them back to their churches. So the very first thing I want you to know is what it's like to be a senior pastor, and that specifically to know that he is pitched basically 24/7. Okay, so what I tell people is, some of you guys grew up in Campus Crusade, the 4 spiritual laws. Well, the first spiritual law is that everyone loves your pastor and has a wonderful plan for his platform. And everybody wants the senior pastor to get behind their thing. And if you've never sat in that seat, I'd want you to know it's pretty exhausting, candidly. And so I don't sit in that seat, but I have enough of that in my inbox, people wanting me to meet with them, to hear about their good idea, people wanting me to endorse their book, people wanting me to run their program, people wanting me to introduce them to people that can help them. that is in my inbox 24/7, and I'm not a senior pastor. And so you need to know, sometimes the narrative will be, and this is the narrative I get back a lot. My senior pastor doesn't like marriage ministry. Okay. So sometimes that can be true. But a lot of times I just want you to know, and it's good for you to know, good for the people that you're helping implement these things at churches, know that they just get inundated. And sometimes because we're so excited about it, we think we're the most important thing, or we think that we're the only thing in their inbox. And we just need to know we're one of so many. And your senior pastor is probably pretty guarded. He's not against good ideas. He is a senior pastor because he's good at recognizing good ideas, but he is just getting pitched so much. Okay. So that would be one of the things that I want you to know. And otherwise you might get frustrated quickly and not continue to kind of push through. So the second thing is, when you go to kind of talk about your idea, your program, your ministry, your plan, you want to make sure that it's tied to the mission of the church. Okay. So, because this is two very different conversations. Hey, pastor, I went to this conference. I went to this church. They're doing these things for marriage. I think it would be amazing here. Okay. And I'm ready to champion it. That's one way to go about it. A better way is to say, hey, senior pastor or elders or whatever your polity is, I know our mission is to, everyone has some version of, kind of Matthew 28, the Great Commission. I know our mission is to call all people to be fully devoted followers of Christ. And I think this may be a way to help that happen. This might be a way to further our mission. We're trying to reach people. Turns out that when churches, I've learned when churches open the doors for, marriage events, resources, enrichment, lost people come. And so I think this is a way to pull that off. And so if that makes sense, it's very subtle. But because your senior pastor is being bitched 24/7 about everybody's great idea, no one is actually coming to your senior pastor to say, I'm trying to help you pull off your vision. I'm trying to help you do the thing that you feel like God's called you to do in this church, in this community. And so when you show up with that posture, you're a solution to his problem. You're not looking for a champion for your idea. You have a much better chance of getting traction and getting some buy-in, getting some help. Okay. So that's subtle, but I've just seen it so many times. I literally will ask people, they will come and they'll say, my senior pastor didn't bite on this. I'm so discouraged. And I'll ask them, what did you say? And they'll tell me what the way they positioned it. And I'll go, well, if it's helpful, I would tell you no as well. I would have sorted that one out and just told my assistant, hey, thank you. We're busy and we're good. We'll call you. And so how you say it is as important as kind of what your idea is, if that makes sense. Okay. And especially when you come back from, help your people understand this. When they come back from a conference, do not start with, I just went to a conference and I'm so excited, because he has heard that lead in thousands of times and he's immediately skeptical. Okay. And so just be aware of how you say that. Okay. Number 3 is you want to make sure that they trust you. And so this will sound really, really harsh. But this is the brutal facts. I've had some people come to me and say, hey, my pastor doesn't want to do this thing. He's not excited about this initiative. And so I get to know them a little bit more. And so I'm getting old and I always want to speak the truth in love, but I'm shying away from, or I'm not shying away these days from telling the truth. And so sometimes I'll go, honestly, if you're open to this feedback, I don't think that he doesn't like that idea. He just doesn't trust you. And so for a pastor to have built something of any size, he has had to kind of have this radar where he can quickly size people up. I trust this person. I don't trust this person. If I give this person a ball, they will take it and run. This person will create more problems than help. And he's pretty good at spotting that. And so in that instance, the couples that you help that you will send back to churches, you just want to make sure that if they get a quick no, that they look for ways to build trust. Or if they don't need to make an ask for maybe 6 months, that they look for ways to build trust, and don't just come in with an ask. And so that could be simple things, like championing what's going on already at the church, right? I'm not excited about this church if you guys do what I want to do. I'm just excited to be here. I show up, I smile, I serve at all kinds of things. And by the way, I've got an idea. That's somebody that a pastor would trust, because he knows you care about the church, not just your thing. It's following up, it's if the pastor asks you to do something, you show back up. That if he asks you for information or whatever it is, you do so quickly. You just want to make sure that your pastor trusts you. And the old adage is that you gain it in drops, but you lose it in buckets. And if you're at a trust deficit, you'll never get the support of a senior pastor, even though your idea may be amazing. So make sure he trusts you. He trusts those that you're around. And if not, if you feel like you're at a trust deficit, before you go to make the pitch, make sure that they trust you. Okay. So I've seen that one a ton. Another just pro tip is just to make sure that you over communicate, or another way to say it is never surprise your pastor. You don't ever want him to find out from someone else about what you're doing. He should be in the know. And so when he's asked about it, he can always say, yeah, I knew about that, or we talked about that. I was excited about that. It's just such a cardinal sin. Never, ever, ever. You never can surprise your pastor. Okay. So that means you telegraph the things that you're going to do. So if you have some, you've got some plan you're about to execute on, you tell him this is coming. Okay. Then after the fact, you tell them kind of how it went. Right. So you do kind of a summary or something like that, or just update them along the way. If you're going to do something over a semester, absolutely at the midpoint, just drop something in his inbox or catch him in the hall and tell him this is how this is going. Just wanted you to know. So communicate before, during, and after. And then I would say a big one that I've seen through the years that's generated a lot of heat is bringing in outside speakers without telling the pastor. Okay. So this is a dad of a family. You never just bring someone in from the outside and sit them down at your dinner table and ask them to talk to all the kids. You would always make sure dad was okay at a family. And for a pastor, if you bring in someone from the outside, you got to make sure that you let them know. Okay. Unless they've just given you, a blank check that you can write and invite anybody you want. Outside of that, you always let someone know you're bringing in someone from the outside. Here's why, here's who they are. If there's any questions that you anticipate they would have, then you let them know. Okay. But I've seen it firsthand. They hate to be surprised, and they really hate it. They really hate it if you invited someone that they weren't aware of. Okay. That they now have to kind of scramble and tell other people why they thought that was a good idea. I've seen that one a ton. So another one is just to remember every pastor is different, and you want to know what it is that they value. And every pastor's got one or two kind of things that are really core to who they are. Sometimes it can be evangelism, sometimes it can be growth, sometimes it can be discipleship. And this is kind of a corollary to connecting this to the vision of the church. But if you find your pastor really excited about something, I would just position my thing in relation to that passion area of his. Like a lot of times it would be evangelism. And so of all the things that I could share with the pastor, I want to share stories of either evangelism or pre-evangelism that I'm seeing. Okay. And I would just say, while we're there, share stories often. Share the good stories that are coming out of your ministry. And a lot of pastors are looking for content for their messages. They're gonna share some story, and they would love to share a story about a person, about a family from their church. They'd love their church to be the hero. And so if you've got something that kind of embodies what your pastor is trying to pull off, what your elders are about, what the mission, vision, values of the church are, and you give them that, well, then you get free advertising from the front. You didn't have to pay for it, and you'll get your pastors kind of standing on the balls of their feet, talking about how great your marriage program is, or your conference, or your seminar, those kinds of things. Share those stories up. And when I led the marriage ministry at our church, I would just literally write down all of the great stories that I heard. And then what I would do is, when we were in the middle of a sermon series and I knew we were going to talk about, let's say, forgiveness, then I would then forward one of those stories, to whoever was going to be communicating during that time, and say, hey, I don't know if you're looking for a story of forgiveness, but I have got a great one that happened right here in this church. And here's the high level. If you want to know any more about it, I would love to talk with you. And so I always felt like, if I heard a great story, it was kind of like a $100 bill laying on the ground. I never would walk past $100 bill. I'd always pick it up and I'd put it in my pocket for an opportune time. And that's what I felt like stories were. So when you have a great one, capture it or send it up, or wait. You can wait until you think it's going to be germane to some of the topics that they're talking about. And then the church is the hero, and you'll get some free advertising and some championing. Okay. Another mistake that I see, and pastors see too, is when you make the ministry about you. Pastors hate this. They hate it when someone wants to use the platform of the church for their own kind of self-actualization, or building their own mini platform. And so you'll have a couple, they will come in and they do want to help couples, but they kind of want to be the front of the room. They kind of want to have a microphone. They kind of want to build a little mini church. And that's one of the fastest ways to get shut down by a pastor, is for you to kind of build your own little kingdom inside of a church. They've seen it. It causes factions. It causes divisions, and they want no part of it. And so you talk about the team that's involved. You use collective pronouns: we, ours, yours, but do not talk about your ministry, my ministry, my event. It's our. If we're a part of a church, we're a body. It's our event. It's or the senior pastor. It's your event. Okay. And here's this will happen. This happens for most churches. A very impassioned lay couple will come, and they'll pitch an idea. The pastor will not be super sure about it. He'll kind of be a little bit skeptical, and he'll say, I trust you. Take a measured step. Let's see what happens. And then it just goes swimmingly well. And everybody is talking about it at the church. Everybody's so excited. It's all the buzz. And then he will stand up. Okay. He will stand up in the pulpit and talk about this great event or this great ministry, and how he always knew it was going to be a great idea. Like he spotted it at the very beginning. This was going to be amazing. Okay. So if that happens, you've got a choice to make. You can remind everybody that you're the one that came up with the idea. It was you're the one that scouted it. You're the one that took the risk. Or you can just be grateful that he's excited about it. And I've just watched people get frustrated and go pick a fight with their senior pastor who's excited about their thing, and he kind of feels like some of it was his idea. Maybe he rewrote history, maybe he didn't. But my counsel is always, who cares? Like, I feel like you won. Do not go try to correct him and remind him that you're the reason all this is amazing. Okay. Give away the wins, share the wins. We tell churches. Okay. Another one, I think it just file this under things that are good to know. Sometimes pastors are a little bit reluctant to get behind a marriage ministry initiative because their own marriages aren't in a great place. Okay. And they feel a little insecure about their own marriages. They don't want to tell stories about marriages. They don't want to preach a 3-part series on marriage because of the insecurity they feel in their own marriage. Okay. And so that is a thing. I used to think it wasn't. I used to think there were other reasons why some pastors didn't want to champion marriage ministry as much as they could or should. And I actually think that's kind of a thing, and which makes sense. So we've talked about evangelism already today. If there's a pastor who hadn't shared his faith in 5 years, he's probably not going to be jumping out of his shoes excited to do a 3-week series on evangelism, because he doesn't have kind of stories of his own life that really model the message. And so for some pastors, there's going to be this sense of insecurity, this sense of man, I don't really have the credibility to talk about marriage. And so if that's the case, or if that's the what you sense might be happening, I would encourage you to reframe how you think about marriage ministry. And I would think about the first marriage I want to serve in my church is my pastors, or multiple pastors. And before I care about every marriage, I want to care about our leaders' marriages. And so that is to pray for them. That's to encourage them. That's to spend some time with them and ask how they're doing, and just cheer them on, to listen, ask good questions. And that may be the first step for a little bit, is to actually care for the marriage of your leaders. And that, for some of you, that might be your marriage ministry for a couple of years, is just to work with your pastor until you can get him to the place where he could champion the rest of the ministry. Okay. Let's see. I think I do not like talking into videos with no feedback. Let me maybe just say this. You need to play the long game. There will be ups, there will be downs. There will be times when you feel like you get all the announcements, all the support, all the budget. There will be some times when you don't. And I think if you play the long game, if you remember your why, if your why is big enough, you'll be able to move through those seasons, and you'll be able to outlast the problems. You'll be able to garner trust from everyone. And you'll be known as a leader. Your ministry will be known as such, that just something that just has stability. It has longevity. And if we get agitated every time we don't get our way, every time something bad happens, every time someone says, we were going to make an announcement and now we're not, or we were going to do a marriage conference in the spring, but we can't, and you kind of blow a gasket every time, you might get your way on the short term, but you will lose long term. I've seen it over and over and over again. People who will kind of bully their way into a short-term win, and it'll turn into a long-term loss. So play the long game. Be faithful. If proverbially there's a premier room in the church to do your marriage conference, and they give you the one in the bottom, in the basement, that doesn't smell very good. You tell them thank you, and you do an amazing job in there. And then after 6 months, you can ask, hey, is that room still available? We're growing. We'd love to go up there, but don't get snippy. Don't be entitled. Senior pastors can sniff that out. Okay. And then I think maybe the last thing is just come back to your why, and passion, deep belief will cover a multitude of executional sins. And so if you do something wrong, you don't say the right word, you don't have the right strategy, but you genuinely believe that what you're doing matters to the kingdom of God, and that if you invest in a marriage and you get that right, that marriage will have kids who will have kids who will have kids, and you really are moving the kingdom needle, that's contagious. That's contagious. And people want to get behind people who are excited about what they're doing, who have deep belief in what they're doing. It excites them. They feel like you're going to have the energy to push through all the hard barriers. And so just remember your why. be able to articulate it and then remind yourself of it if it doesn't go well. So, Steph, those are a few thoughts. I can keep talking. So, do you want to take a pause here?
Yeah.
Some Q&A, or do you have any reaction
Yes.
to any of that? Yeah.
Yes, we'll go into our Q&A. We'll move into that, and so we can give people plenty of time to ask you questions. But first of all, I just want to let you know how thankful and how grateful we are that you took the time. We know how busy you are and that you have a lot on your plate. So the fact that you took time to come here and share with our leaders, we're very grateful for that. So thank you so much,
Thank
John.
you.
It was
Well,
really
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and I honor the good work you guys are doing. And so it's really amazing. I'm looking at some of these faces and I think about how long you've been at this, how many couples you've helped, and now you are working with other leaders. And so the fruit of your ministry is growing on other people's trees, and it's really, really fun. So I'm grateful for the really good work so many of you are doing. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So if anybody has a question for John, just go ahead and raise your virtual hand and I'll call on you. I see Tom has his hand raised. Tom, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, John. Question for you. Where would you recommend, or what sort of activities would you recommend somebody starting with in a church? I think probably for starting with re-engage may be a bridge too far for some churches because of capacity and otherwise. But what sort of activities and trajectory would you recommend?
Yeah, that's great, Tom. Well, you've got some great resources. I mean, I'm looking at some of the names here, so I would crowdsource that one. But things that that we're seeing, probably some of the same things you're seeing, is just a simple one night marriage conferences. I think still lots of churches are still seeing good success from a Friday night, Saturday, but a lot of churches are just going to a simple one night event, and you can make it really fun and really short, let someone talk, roll out some good food, and just raise the value of marriage. That's a good one. You could also do things in your small groups. You can push through there. Right Now Media has just got all kinds of different message series. So a lot of churches will they'll pick one of those, they'll push that through all the small groups in their church. Date nights where you don't have to come up to the church, and there's just little written guides, and hey, let's all do this weekend, and we'll talk about it next time we're together. So I think anything's small. And so, Tom, I think it's a great question, but I would think about it takes a lot of energy to have an event, to start something, to call people to the building. And I know you guys know this, but just to say it out loud, make sure that there's a next step for them, whatever that is. And it could be a book, it could be one of those small groups, it could be something. But if you're going to spend all that energy to call them to something, just spend just a little bit more energy to give them also a next step. But yeah, so just look for something, and I'd put some, if it was me, I'd put some passionate people in a room, and I'd get in front of a whiteboard, and we'd just pick an idea, and we'd go for it. But that's a great question, Tom. Thank you.
All right. I see Bruce and Lita from Tulsa have their hand raised.
Hi, John. My question is, you talked about working with the pastors in their marriage. How do you approach them about that? I'm not saying that I know of pastors in our church that have marital issues, but how do you broach the topic of saying, hey, you guys should do some things to enhance your marriage personally?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. It's a great question. And I don't know your pastor, so let's pick a hypothetical one here. If it was someone on our staff, and I was, Pam and I were a couple of this church, and especially if I wanted to start something, I would just come to him and just simply say that, hey, Pam and I, we have a real heart for marriages in our body. And it occurred to us that we could, maybe start some classes or some events and things like that to help our church. But we were talking, and we wondered, well, who's actually caring for your marriage? And are you guys in a good spot? Are there ways we could pray? Because it would be tragic if we gave all of this energy to all the rest of the marriages in our church, and and no one was caring for you, and we want to care for marriages. And so we thought we would start at the top, and just wanted to know if there's ways we could serve you, if there's ways we could pray. That's pretty non-threatening. How can we pray, and then actually do it, and then just send them resources. Like there's plenty family life. If you're a pastor, you can go for free. So I might just, if I find things like that, it's like, oh, I don't know if you guys would be interested in this, but you can go for free. And you know what? I don't know if the church has a budget for a hotel, but man, we would love to pick up the tab for that. Go get the room with a suite, and we'll send you some money. And so that type of thing. But I'd ask questions. I probably wouldn't launch into your wife looks tired. I want to know why that is. So
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you for your question, Wilbanks. I see that Derek has his hand raised. Derek?
Yeah, John, I'd be curious your thoughts if you run into either the stated or unstated objection of we'll make the singles mad if we focus too much on marriage via sermon or programming.
yeah, that's good. And I think the pretty standard reply, on all of that is, hey, healthy churches are made up of healthy individuals and healthy families. Marriage is covered, a lot in scripture. So we want to be faithful to scripture cover to cover. And then if you're single, we understand this I'd show a little empathy. We understand this could be tough. Like, I understand if I was single, it might be hard for me to hear about marriage. But what I'd love for you to do is just to think about, how so many people in our church are married, and how that's a felt need, and we want to serve them. And then two, even if you have and then if you think you want to get married, any conversation about marriage, anything we can do to create a healthy culture of marriage will be helpful to you in the long term. And then finally, even if you don't plan on getting married, we think anything that we talk about or anything we do will help you minister to your friends, because you have lots of friends who are married, and God can use single people to push couples towards oneness. And we want to make sure that we give everybody in this congregation tools and resources to help marriages. And that's what that's how we normally handle it. And will you get some blowback? You might, but you have to believe that it's what's best for the church, and it's actually most loving. You would never do so in a way that was insensitive, or you were somehow poking them in the eye, if they were single. But you should be able to stand up straight and believe that's what's best for the congregation, and do it in a way that would be helpful, even if they're singles, and just be able to weather any blowback that you get. But yeah, it's a great question, Derek. And if you've done it better, you should chime in and let everybody know your thoughts.
Yeah, I just think no preacher is shy to preach on parenting has been my observation. But it's the same principle. Like, I don't lead with that. I more so empathize first.
Yeah.
Try to work into the conversation. We have a similar dynamic with parenting, but we lean into that one. But yeah, it does feel like a bit of a tension to manage.
Yeah, it is. That's right. Yeah, not being aware of that tension would not be helpful. And so and I think that's probably the equal sin. Some people get really pretty nervous, and they shy away from it, and then some people don't understand what the big deal is, and they just go all guns blazing, as we say here in Texas, and that wouldn't be wise either.
Thank you for that question, Derek. That was a great thing to bring up. I see, Avon, you have your hand raised. Do you have a question? You are muted.
Okay, there we go. Yes. First of all, thank you for your information. I was an executive pastor of a very large church, and now I pastor a church. And I agree with everything you're saying in reference to trying to bring marriage initiative to a pastor. In relation to the singles, I think one thing that has been a blessing to us is we have to make, other than marriage retreats, I think singles should always be included in workshops, seminars, conferences, because what happens is, and just from trial and error and just from, ministering to couples and even talking to some singles that are dating, the fact that when we talk about all of these different dynamics about marriage, and 99% of the time singles don't get invited, they wind up taking the same issues from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, never being able to stay in a relationship that's going to ultimately be the results of a happy marriage. So I would highly suggest, if you do workshops, conferences, or seminars, invite your singles, because I guarantee you they're going to take away something from your events that's going to help them in their next relationship, or even the relationship that they're already in.
Yeah.
And I think including the singles makes the church all inclusive. It's not just married folk. It's, it gives an open door to everybody.
It's good. In another, I completely agree. Like, if you're going to have a marriage conference, I would let anybody come, anybody. And we did a marriage conference here. So it's been a year now, and we ask anybody, if we open it up to the whole congregation, but we asked specifically our older singles if they wanted to serve during the conference. And so they came and they served, and we made an amazing green room for them. So they loved being together. They had another excuse to be together. We honored them, and then they were just around the whole event. Well, they have a big Friendsgiving event the end of this month, and I didn't even know this, but our marriage team is going to serve there, and which I just thought was really, really beautiful. Hey, we serve each other. We serve each other. We don't cross our arms and go, well, you're not doing something for me. We look to serve each other and bear burdens and encourage each other. So I love the way both of those teams handled that.
Yeah, that's great. Anna, you have a question? You are muted, Anna.
Sorry, it took me a minute. Hi, John. Thank you. Everything you shared is fabulous as always. I just wanted to say we had an event last weekend, a marriage ministry event, and we had, I noticed a single woman volunteered, and I think my heart is just to make sure she knows that she is seen and that she is loved, and that I am so thankful she is there. And so I know that there are some churches where there is this chasm, and whether it's I don't know, for whatever reason, the divide could be there. Everything that everybody has said, but I went up to her and I just was like, I am so glad you're here, and thank you so much. And I spent time with her, and I was like, just really wanting to make sure that she knew her value in that space, and that it was relevant for her as well. So, and I think that's really what anybody wants, right? Married or unmarried, is to know my value, I'm seen, and that I'm fully accepted and loved. So awesome input from everybody.
It's great. Hey, someone in the chat, I love that. Yeah, and I think inviting them into singles into married, small groups and environments. Not everyone, but a lot of our singles really love that. They crave that. They want to be around intact, healthy families because they didn't come from one, and just don't make it any more complicated than just inviting them along. I think a lot of us get really insecure. Like, what are we going to talk about? They're going to ask me a question that I don't know. Just invite them. You're going to watch a ball game? Invite them over, and let them see husband and wife and kids running around, the dog barking. That ministers more than a lot of times we think. So someone was asking about the whole submission thing. What do you do when your pastor shut it down by saying if women are submissive, there will not be any marriage problems? And I will get, which is like, what a spicy question to ask. And so I hear, how I'm answering that these days. again, so many of you have been doing this so much longer than me, but you know, I've been in this space for over 20 years. And really, I can't remember a marriage that their issue was submission. I just like where that actually, if we fix that, we'd fix everything. Every marriage that I run across, you know, that is less than, which is to say all marriages, but the issue has much more to do with Galatians 5, shedding the deeds of the flesh and walking out the fruits of the Spirit. And so when a couple comes to me and they say, we need to talk about this, I'll say, you know, it's in the Bible. We probably should. But can I tell you, if I were you and I was going to spend your energy on something, I would open up Galatians 5 and I would try to make sure that I was walking out all the fruits of the Spirit there, you know, because if you were loving and you were patient and you were kind and you didn't have things like, you know, wrath and malice, I bet you really actually enjoy your marriage. And I bet you wouldn't even have time to talk about this whole submission issue. And you would, you know, as a fruit of the Spirit, you would be submitting one to another. So that's, I've been saying that a lot recently. Hey guys, just be Christian. Don't fight about one verse. Try to obey all of it, and you'll be just fine. And it makes meetings and counseling sessions a lot shorter. but I believe it.
Thanks for that, John. That's a great answer to that question. Carl, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, I do. And first of all, John, it's so great to have you here. I've been looking forward to this all month long. So, and I just want to say you bring such incredible language. You're a voice for the marriage movement in the country, and I just always appreciate how you're always crafting new language. John, this is a little bit broader question, but do you feel like things are changing with marriage? Do you see any new kind of fresh wind around marriage? You know, marriage has been through a long season with a lot of headwinds, you know, for 40 years, but what positive kind of fresh winds are you seeing blowing around marriage?
Wow. Well, I'm trying to stay clear of election things. But I think America has seen, some people have seen the end of the thinking that marriage is an ancillary part of society. And so I think if you can just like turn the microphones and the cameras and the Twitter off and just get people to just actually talk, I think I'm seeing a lot more people just go, you know what, that's actually what's best for society. Like, I know there's some vitriol from other, you know, everybody starts fighting, but I think we can agree that's what's best for kids. So I'm seeing a lot more of that language. It used to, like, marriage to, you know, some of you guys have been around long enough, especially if you're working in kind of inner city areas, to say you're pro-marriage would somehow get interpreted as I'm for women staying in relationships that are abusive and oppressive, and I don't want them to leave. And it would get translated. And I'm not running into that one as much. So I think there's just a general, you know, the stats would say it. And people, if you can get them to be honest, sometimes they have to cater to some constituents they have, and they've got to be angry and vocal another way. But I feel like around, you know, the dinner table, people are honest about that. And the second, I would say, is a hunger in kind of next gen for relationships. And I was just with a gathering of probably about 300 young leaders, so under 30, most of them under 25, and they all want to be married, and they're all really intrigued. Now they're a little bit nervous because they don't have a lot of great models. They would tell you that they are impacted by social media, and their standards are a little out of whack. They're, you know, it's like when you use Google reviews for going out to dinner, and you were going to a 4.8 and you were excited about it, and then you saw a 4.9 as you sat down, and now you're kind of wondering what that would have been like. You know, they those that are younger really do kind of struggle with that, and they're honest about it. but I'm seeing a real desire for marriages, for relationships that are built on something other than physical attraction, for raising families in a way that I probably have not seen in in a few years. So that's how I'd answer that, Carl. Is there anything you're seeing, brother?
We're seeing just some dramatic drops in the divorce rate. And it seems like, always hate going back to COVID, but COVID seems to have been a profound reset for people. And people changed a lot of their habits and they reassessed what was most important to them. And it just seems like that people are getting back more to the fundamentals, and their closest relationships seem to be very, very important to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I agree. I'm seeing that.
All right. Tom, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had another question, John. I've been down to Watermark a couple times. What are you guys doing, or new things, things on the horizon for you? Do you still do the foundations course? What do you see as an effective, holy orbed marriage ministry? But I guess I'm throwing a couple questions in there. But maybe first of all, what's on the horizon for you guys at Watermark?
Yeah. So, we've not a lot is like new and innovative. So, we just said, I mean, this was 2002, stood in front of a whiteboard and said, we're going to prepare newlyweds, establish newlyweds, and then enrich and restore all marriages. So prepare, establish, enrich, restore. Every organization's got some version of that. And so those are still the categories we operate in. We've got Merge, which is our pre-married class, which we love. We do that on, we have a Wednesday night instance, we have a Monday night instance, and then we have a weekend, a couple instances of those throughout the year. We're still committed to that. Foundation groups, we're still committed to that. We're rewriting the curriculum now. So this is good. This is good to know. Like when we started that 20 years ago, this is crazy. This is so, just imagine this. I used to hand a stack of books to newlyweds, 4 books. They would read 4 books in a year and they loved it. They will not read 4 books. They won't read, parts of a book. And so we have got to, and we've been kind of chopping that down. But the marriage team is not, they're pretty busy. So my team now on the resources side, we're going to write a new short, just a more concise version of that, just because couples just, they've got the attention span of a goldfish and they cannot finish dense books no matter how good I think they are. So we're not going to pick a fight with them. We're going to try to meet them where they are. And then we're still doing Reengage, still doing marriage conferences, and in some respects our both our age and our size is working against us, because it takes so much energy to keep those plates spinning. Sometimes there's not a lot of room, calories for innovation. And I'm trying to think if there's anything. This is interesting to me. The Merge team, has been trying for years to get all of the leaders together. And so we've got a retreat center that we lease out during the year. And last year, I remember they went all in and tried to get couples to come out for a weekend, and they did not get very many. And it was because of the kids. That Merge leader, the pre-married leaders all had kids, and it was just exceedingly difficult to get everybody lined up. So this, I think tonight, they're doing a family event. So rather than fight that, I thought it was genius. They're going to do like a movie night out on the lawn, and kind of cater to the family. And they won't get a chance to talk about mission, vision, values of Merge, but they will all get to be together. And so rather than trying to fight the kids, they just used a way to leverage it. And so if you tell a kid there's going to be movies and cotton candy, I mean, they're so in. And so that's just a small tweak. there's the other thing I would just say is that the intergenerational thing is really starting to get some steam here. We used to segment, it was kind of a really bright line between all things single and all things married. And I think we're hearing actually from both groups, from those that are married and those that are single, the richness of spending time together. And so nothing programmatic as of yet, but we're really raising that value and watching a lot of singles join small groups that were previously only married groups, and they really both are really enjoying it. So those are a few things, but we're still committed to those 4 things, and I think we will be if we can find a better way to accomplish those 4 objectives. As we make disciples, we would swap out one tomorrow. So maybe somebody on this call will invent something that we will like much better than what we're doing, and we'll do that instead.
All right. Are there any other questions for John today? Okay, well, I just want to let you guys know, I know many of you guys, a lot of you serve dual roles. You're leading CMIs or marriage ministries, but you're also, a lot of you are church leaders. And I just wanted to let you know that John has a church leadership podcast that has some really valuable information that will impact the way you do church leadership. So if you haven't checked out John's church leadership podcast, that's on YouTube, and I think it might be on other podcast platforms, but you should definitely check it out. John, can you tell us where that can be found?
Yeah, you can go to anywhere you get your podcast, Apple Podcast, and just type in church leadership podcast. So there's lots of different variations, but it's the one with the W on it, or it says Watermark. And actually, so we talk about all types of things, but we actually just released an episode that gave the history of Reengage, and that might actually be encouraging to you. We'll talk about hiring people and firing people and strategy and things like that. But the one that just dropped this week actually was about the history of Reengage and how we built it. And so not so much about Reengage, although that might be interesting, but just the long obedience in the same direction of building something, about how God just tends to bring the right people at the right time. It's a story about that as much as it is about Reengage. That might actually be interesting as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to that one and it was very interesting. I enjoyed hearing the story and all about it. So you guys will like that. And there's just some valuable information on that podcast. So I encourage you guys to check it out. Well, I guess that oh, did you have something else to say, John?
No, I mean, always, we've got multiple times a year at both at Watermark and other places. We've got kind of a training conference where we talk about, mostly these days, we're talking about Reengage. And you're always welcome, even if, and we have some people that will tell us we have no intention of doing Reengage, but we'd love to hear just kind of how you do what you do and why you do what you do, and contextualize that for our thing, which we love. We love that. And so you're always welcome, even if you don't want to do Reengage, if you want to come. And sometimes it's just fun to be in a room with 300, 400, 500 people that are about marriage in the church. You can just walk around and drink coffee and be energized by the energy in the room. You're always invited to that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's always valuable to be with other people that are passionate about the same thing you are. So thank you for that. Well, that concludes our November training event. You guys remember, if you need anything or if you have any feedback on today's event, please contact me at steph@marriageinitiative.org. I'd love to hear from you guys, and also be on the lookout for my follow-up email next week. I'll be sending the recording to this training, and that'll be coming your way next week. So make sure you don't miss that. And we just thank you guys all for joining us. We love you guys, and we're so grateful that you're part of the CMI family. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.